It's going to convey to 2 seconds to Anthony Slater after this season. Joining us right now via phone.
Wow.
Man.
Hey, Sam, give me credit for picking a colleague and not a competitor of yours, by the way. I did that on the fly. Good morning.
You going to pull Woj out of retirement? Is that the next?
How are you, buddy?
I'm good, guys. How are you doing?
You know.
Not feeling it.
I mean,
he's not feeling it.
It's been a fun week in Sacramento, Sam. The basketball team stinks. The baseball team just gave up another 6 runs to the Cubs, and they're not even currently playing. By the way, my soccer team across the pond can't win a game. Mental health ain't great right now. How are you?
I just, I'm not a detective, but what's the common denominator between three teams?
It's a great point. Balls. You nailed it. So they lost to the Wizards last night, as you know, the Sacramento Kings. And look, I'm just going to ask you a general question. I'm not going to try to pigeonhole you. What are you forecasting the storms? Are you hearing and seeing anything as we barrel into the postseason, if you will, backwards with our pants down? What are you hearing about this franchise?
Not getting a lot of clarity at this point. Actually, if you could remind me, where do we stand on the protect the pick mission that apparently is a thing again?
Yeah, it's top 12 protected to Atlanta as a result of the Herder trade, as you know. Currently, right now, Sacramento is in 13th place, and they are a game behind both Miami and Phoenix in order to retain their 12. That being said, there is a scenario where they end up making it, they keep their 13 or 14, whatever it may be, and they move up in the lottery, but that's they'd have to go to the top 4. Currently, where they stand right now, they would give up the pick unless they beat the odds, which are currently 4.8% of moving up. That's the best I can do.
All right. I didn't process all of that, but that is helpful. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting clarity other than they expected to have a good year. They have not had a good year. They obviously turned the roster on its head halfway through the year, changed the coach. The assistant GM, who was kind of more of a co-GM, skipped town. And, as an aside, happy for Wes. I hope him and his family enjoy Utah. I thought he honestly tried to do the best he could in a tough environment, and should not be forgotten that he helped get the team back to the playoffs. But, I don't know what it means for those who remain. You really did feel like Doug in particular was kind of rubber stamped to be the coach. And maybe that still continues to be the case, but the optics of this finish are obviously not ideal. And then on the front office front, there's just a whole lot of there's all this chatter that, maybe Monty's going to go, back to Houston or do this or do that. And to be clear, from his side and his people, it's no, he's doing the job that he's hired to do, and that he's contractually, has terms beyond this season, and is not, trying to leave town, like Wes obviously did. And Luke Lauk's the assistant coach before him. So I don't know. I mean, I expect change. I just don't know what form it takes.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, Sam, because, the reality that's staring in front of him is either most likely, seemingly, you don't know, maybe a play-in loss or not even getting there. So that's not any of the goals that this organization wanted. And they've done some pretty significant changes on the fly this year. So if we're looking at the roster in the summer, you got to believe there would be some changes there. But how viable is that with some of the contracts and some of the results they're getting from these current players?
Yeah, Zach LaVine is still owed a lot of money, and I don't know how great his market's going to be because, if they wanted to maybe go in a different direction there, because his, the optics around him right now, fair or not, are not great, with the Bulls, having an uptick without him and the Kings having a downtick with him. So that comes to mind. You have DeMar, who I think there's going to be similar to Sabonis that we've talked about. There's going to be some tough conversations in the summer where guys decide they feel like being part of this. So, the Keegan extension talks that kind of loom. And again, to go back to the front office, just that question of who's going to be pulling these strings. I mean, for now, I know we've talked about it in the past, and I think rattled the Kings fans' cages again when I mentioned, Vlade being a little more involved. Like, for now, the organization is claiming that, some of those communications are informal, but it's not necessarily a sign of more formal involvement to come. Time will tell. But, a whole lot of gray area right now for me.
Sam, unfortunately, you do other shows. I saw your appearance on one of them because I am a fan, and you had alluded to the John Morant situation in Memphis, and it's something worth monitoring. You said that I think, and apologies if I'm misquoting you, but something to the effect of, it's got some similarities with how the De'Aaron Fox situation began to murmur a while back for Sacramento. If what I just said is accurate, how would you compare the developing Sabonis situation to either of those two?
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar, and more similar, to Fox than Morant, because obviously the context around Domantas is the same. So it's more apples to apples. It's, doesn't have the fireworks of De'Aaron in terms of the multiple extension offers getting declined, or, things of that nature. But yeah, he's going to read the room. He's going to talk to the organization and try to find out, all these questions that we have, he's got the same ones. This is not rocket science.
And go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. What do you got?
Just not to sky his fall here, but you had a coach fired. You had a coach leave in the middle of a season. You had a general manager, assistant general manager leave in the middle of the season. You had the team's star ask out. I mean, we're seeing a pattern here, Sam. And is there anything you're seeing that, we're still waiting for the DeRozan thing to pop? Let's not forget, as you kind of alluded to earlier, he already said shortly before De'Aaron was traded, hey, I don't have a lot of time left. I don't want to spend that, not contending. I'm paraphrasing. I fully expect that thing to pop in the offseason. It seems like there's a lot of jumping ship going on with this franchise.
No, I agree. And I think, I'm forgetting Domas's age. But the same mentality is going to be there for him. I mean, that's what Fox is an interesting one, because even though he was on the younger side, I think we've talked about this before, where there's kind of a sense that he's not necessarily a guy who's going to play the game until he's 38 or 40 years old. And so time was of the essence for him. You're dead on about the urgency that is going to come from the players this summer. You're dead on about the jumping ship component. There's really not, this assistant coaching staff, for example, that Doug has, it's full of Mike Brown people, and I think that's going to mean a lot of change, even if Doug does remain. So there's that. And we're kind of going round and round here, but even go back to the front office, all these things that need to get figured out. Wes was doing a lot of that stuff before. And so, I'm sure Vivek is having conversations with people about, different ideas and what he wants to do here, but there's a whole lot of work to do and not really a whole lot of people to do it.
So I'm thinking about the perception of all this that has happened to this team this year around the league. If there is some cleaning of house in the offseason, if that's front office, if that's the head coach position, Sam, we know the ultimate caveat is always, well, there's one of 30 jobs. Like these are hard to get. They're coveted. But how much kind of damage across the league and just kind of image would there be on the talent pool that they could be looking at if they did try to make a move just based on kind of all they went through this year?
Significant. You're right. There's one of 30, but even, more specifically and importantly, the prospective candidates, and it's the question of, okay, what sort of check is Kings ownership willing to cut? Is it a competitive market rate executive type salary, or are they coming in low? That type of stuff obviously matters. I think them getting to the playoffs a couple of years ago, showing that, they've at least accomplished something in recent history, maybe helps them a little bit. But yeah, I mean, right now the headlines aren't good. It's funny. We have our annual anonymous player poll. It's it's going to come out later this month at some point. And I haven't seen all the results and don't want to, kind of give them all away. But I glanced at one of the questions, which is, what's the worst organization in the NBA? And I definitely don't think the Kings are dominating that discussion, but they had their fair share of representation. That's a binary question, right? Like, players are only giving one answer. So ideally an organization would not want to see its name at all in a question like that. So that's a little bit of a reflection. So yeah, again, just it's a little early here where it's going to happen quick. Once this season wraps up, if they give up that play-in spot somehow, some way, with the way they're playing, I wouldn't put it past them. They look pretty dispirited. That people texted me last night, literally asking, like, did they decide to tank? Like, what is going on here? So, we'll see where it goes.
Well, and that's the thing, Sam. They're playing. We talked about that earlier. The problem is the Wizards are trying to tank. They pulled Jordan Poole, who had 23 points in 24 minutes for the entire fourth quarter. They had, I think, 9 guys out. That's a tanking team. The Kings last night, we watched the game. DeRozan has 20 in the fourth. All the starters are on the floor, and you and I both know. We all know players don't tank, coaches don't tank. The organizations find their own way to tank. The issue with the 10 seed, if you will, is the Kings are almost certainly going to fall backwards into it when you consider the only ones that can pull them out are Phoenix. And Phoenix is at Boston, at New York, home Golden State, home OKC, home San Antonio, at Sacramento. I just don't see the wins there for them to get there. So now what I'm hoping is, the organization doesn't sit there and say, well, that's another year in the postseason. We're doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with any of that. This is the least, I feel like, productive segment we've had in a while where I just shrug. I'm like, yeah, like, I don't know. I don't know what to say anymore.
Yeah. Well, and another team, Sam.
How about that age?
Yeah. Well, another team that's there that Dave just brought up is Phoenix, and we've already heard some reports that the way it's going, like, expect an off season of change. This is new ownership. This is a team that invested, that thought they could be a championship contender, and they are far from it. When we think change there, obviously you think Durant. How drastic do you think Phoenix's offseason could turn into?
Yeah, that's, we saw at the trade deadline what was coming. You guys know the backstory. A deal to Warriors was done. I mean, it was done. And as long as the Warriors were ready to hit the button, and they, to their credit, ended up deciding, like, hey, we got to really make sure that Kevin wants to come here. When they did their digging, they found out that was not the case. So that was news to Kevin, who had not been made aware that he was available on the trade market. That did not make him very happy. And I kind of love, as an aside, how Kevin's handled his own messaging this season, where he's really taken stories head on and not really been kind of his defensive self like back in the day. Just clarified things and flat out said, like, I just want control of my future and at this stage of my career with what I've accomplished. So Kevin's going somewhere. The Timberwolves showed interest. It does appear that Kevin also has interest potentially in joining Anthony Edwards and company, although I don't think that's going to be the landing spot. They have to prioritize paying Naz Reid this summer, which causes a problem. Did you look at New York? I don't know where it's going to be, but yeah, I think Kevin being on the move is going to be a big story this summer.
Back to our Sacramento Kings as we talked to Sam Amick with the Athletic. So you talked about your forthcoming poll coming out, and the Kings certainly at least being on the list, if not at the top of most dysfunctional organizations. We also need to go back and talk about Mike Brown and how that was handled, and coaches, agents speaking out as to how that was handled. We worry as fans Hey, is that going to make this harder to do, that harder to do, whether it's free agency or landing a really good coach? Sam, do we ultimately overrate that? Do we put too much emphasis on that in the moment? And is it one of 30 jobs, or is that a real issue for the team?
Regarding the front office or regarding getting players?
I'm saying regarding getting well, let's separate them out if there's a difference, because I mean both. I mean free agents and or trying to get trades where an agent might say, no, don't send my guy there, he won't be happy. So you can speak on both the player side and also assuming, if Doug doesn't stick around, assuming they may or may not have issues getting a coach this summer.
Yeah, I would probably say it's a bigger problem on the player front. Because you have agents that will legitimately tell their guys, like, I'm not sending you there. Whether it's now, trades, obviously they're not in control of, but free agency wise, even the fact that DeMar was the highest profile, most accomplished free agent in the history of the organization last summer, which is so unfortunate because that, in a vacuum, that's a win, but it just didn't work the way that they had hoped it would. But that obviously reminds you of the history of this franchise and how hard of a time they've had getting free agency talent. The reputation stuff impacts that community, I would argue, not necessarily greater, but I think with executives and coaches, you might have an easier time finding somebody who wants to be the hero, and who's capable. The pool of talent on, especially the executive front, you can think outside the box. You can try to cut a huge check for a big name, circle back with R.C. Buford of the Spurs and try to give him $20 million a year, which I'm not saying that's happening.
I wish it would.
Extreme example. Well, you remember they tried back in the day to get his attention and he never showed any interest.
Well, and Sam, to the point, I think it needs to be added to the conversation. Let's put Vivek Ranadive in the spotlight here for a second. Vlade Divac, Pete D'Alessandro, Monty McNair. I don't count Joe Dumars for the 30 seconds he had it. They all have one thing. Well, they probably have a lot of things in common, but the one thing that glares out that they have in common, they're both first-time rookie general managers. At some point, you think, hey, it doesn't count against the cap. Why don't I throw 10, 15, $20 million at a Presti lieutenant or an R.C. Buford or a Bob Myers or somebody who has a track record?
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, we don't always know who they have gone after. Like RC, for example, did they ever put anything in front of him? How much was it? But no, I agree. I don't know all of Vivek's finances at the moment. By all, the general characterization is that he's done really well the past 5-6 years and is in a good place. So you are correct. That is, go ask Steve Ballmer about that approach. That's kind of the one cheat code with the collective bargaining agreement or the workaround, if you will, is that, Steve, obviously the Clippers owner, I don't know the lump sum total, but he pays a whole lot of money to his front office with Lawrence Frank and Trent Redden and Mark Hughes and Lee Jenkins, the former sports writer, all these guys that are, the top three are GM caliber guys. So, all of them making good money. So you're right. That is a fair analysis.
Sam Amick joining us from The Athletic, also brought to you by Jiffy Lube. Sam, I saw that the salary cap is supposed to go up maybe 10% or so. How do you think that impacts a team like the Kings or really around the league? Was that a number that was kind of believed to be what was going to be targeted for this next offseason?
It sounds about right, given, it's crazy, with the commentary about the league being so negative so often and shameless plug time. David Aldridge at our place wrote a great piece about that the other day at The Athletic. It doesn't reconcile very well, like the basketball conversation with the business, which is booming. So with these TV rights deals, which media rights now, because we're not even talking about conventional TV anymore. And the ripple effect on the cap, 10% sounds about right. Everybody in this league is making a whole lot of money. And that's what's crazy is that, the commentary around the league is that too many threes, not enough defense. The guys are doing this, guys doing that, and people have something to say. And then these companies like Amazon and NBC and ESPN step up and just absolutely, give up the farm to partner with the NBA. I mean, that part fascinates me. And yeah, as it relates to the cap, that sounds about right.
Well, Sam, it's been a very agreeable visit together. So let me see if I can help. Top 3 in scoring, top 3 in rebounding, top 3 in assists, top 3 in steals, 57.5% from the field, 41.6 from beyond the arc. And on top of that, averaging a triple-double. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's having a phenomenal year, and I think the Oklahoma City Thunder, who last night, by the way, became, this is a Jason stat, the first team in God knows how long to win 50 games by double digits. Not 60 total, 50 by double digits. They're phenomenal. In what world is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander more valuable than Nikola Jokic?
Are we too late in the segment to switch to video? As a quick question, I feel like we are.
I think
you want me to?
You've got
never too late.
I'm right here.
Yeah, go ahead, hit the button. Let's see. Well,
it's always a little wonky. Let's see.
We'll mess everything up. Hold on, and let's move in. Do we have Sam for the final 4 minutes? There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, Sam. Hi,
gentlemen.
Hi.
Man, you're coming at me with my MVP vote. Look at you.
Come on, dude. Come on. I don't even care about the whole Jokic is better than he was last year. That's like dumb because maybe Shai's 10 times better than he was last year. But how do you not give MVP to a guy who's averaging a triple-double? He's doing things nobody's ever done before, and he's top 3 in all those. Like, how are we doing that?
Yeah, I wasn't ready for your smoke.
Don't get voter fatigue, Sam.
There's no voter fatigue.
Okay.
I swear the Nuggets are calling me every day about this. Trust me. This is right now, this is the most dominant it's in the conversation for most dominant regular season team in the history of the NBA. They have the largest point differential. They are on the level of the 71-72 Lakers that had prime Wilt and prime Jerry West. They're in the, if they win out, they win 70 games. This is their second year of doing this and leading the West. And for me as a voter, it's funny because you properly contextualized Joker a little bit in, what he's accomplished in the past and how this is better. Conversely, I would, highlight the fact that it's Shai showing for a second year in a row that he is, the absolute driving force behind a team that appears to have arrived as a juggernaut and a guy who legitimately can be discussed as having the kind of impact that Michael Jordan had in his prime and his best years on both ends of the floor. It is a tricky debate because we have heliocentric players, which if anybody doesn't hear that term much in basketball, you're just talking about the Luka Doncic's, that was a mouthful. James Harden type guys who are, everything with the offense is going through them at all times. And so, yeah, the assist numbers are, essentially double, somebody like Shai. The defense is a major factor for me as well. Shai is spectacular on that end, and they are lapping the field as a team defensively. Orlando is about 3 points behind them, points allowed per 100 possessions. He gets major props for that. More nuanced stuff for me, and make no mistake, like I was on, voting for Joker for most of the year. I wrote about Shai yesterday, which I think you're alluding to, and literally changed the paragraph where I said, I literally wrote Shai has my vote, but I hadn't published it yet. And then Joker did the 60-point triple double.
Right.
So then I just said, I'm just going to wait till the end. Even out of respect, but there's not a bad pick here. Both guys have been incredible. It sucks that somebody has to lose. But Shai, I forget the last point I was going to make, but the leadership stuff, Dave, when they came through town, and I was around them at the NBA Cup, and then I was around them recently. And in my limited time being around them, I will say I feel better about possibly voting for him because I'm a sucker for like what kind of spirit do you bring to your group? And Shea is leading this young group in an incredibly impressive way when it comes to his demeanor, when it comes to his mentality. He is lifting everybody up around him in a way that you take him out, they're not anything close. I mean, it's obviously very hard to specifically gauge value as much as we want to think that the analytics nail it. But they're both incredible. But I hear you.
Okay. All right. Well, Sam Amick, look forward to that, his player poll and his incorrect MVP vote, all coming up in The Athletic, which you can get wonderful deals on right now. But
hold on. I think you just like guys with cushy poker player bills.
I'm not going to lie. I got more in common with Jokic than probably any other NBA player, which is, cushy. And by the way, we were saying this yesterday, in that 61-point game, probably the most impressive thing is what? He played 55 minutes with a spare tire in Denver. Like what? That's worth a half a vote by itself, Sam.
Go watch the Court of Gold documentary. In general, it's amazing. But what I keep thinking about is there's a shot of Joker in the locker room, kind of a rare shot of like, it's like a Bigfoot type thing. It's Joker with his shirt off. And I saw that and I was like, damn, like he looks good. You know what I mean? Like he's not like, he has worked on his body in a way that I think has flown under the radar. He has, like you said in the game the other day, he's got a motor that continues to get undervalued. No, he's remarkable.
That's funny because his belly used to look like Homer Simpson's lips when he had his shirt off. And so now if he's kind of straightened it out, good for him. They need to get on that diet plan. That Homer Simpson's lips reference, by the way, it works if you look at it. Just paint if his nipples rise.
I wasn't seeing that, but I'll check that later.
Sam Amick of The Athletic joining us for top class radio each and every week. Sam, have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll take a break. The eyes are here.